Well, it's a very big country to miss out. I can't think how I missed the fifth biggest country in the world, but it's mainly, I wasn't really planning to do another series after New Europe. We'd done all 7 continents. I thought, well, that's a fair place to stop. We're all getting very old, barely move. And then Brazil suddenly started everyone started talking about it, partly because the World Cup's going to be there in 2014, then the Olympics in 2016, and then this huge sort of economic boom that they're having there, which has put their economy sort of above that of the UK. And so it was partly just curiosity, partly a feeling that we've got to see Brazil and see it soon, otherwise everyone will be there, everyone will be making programs. So I thought, let's go out there, let's do a short series which can go out immediately after the Olympics in the UK, when people are beginning to ask, what's the next host country going to be like? And I mean, I know very little about Brazil. I've got images of beaches and sand and samba and all that, but I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, as I discovered.
And because it's twice the size of India, how do you go about planning a trip to Brazil? How do you tackle it?
Well, we decided to go north-south and divide the 4 programs up into actually sort of geographical and cultural entities, and it seemed to work quite well because the northeast, the coastal area from San Luis right down to Salvador, is very much as its own culture, very African influenced, a lot of music, bright outfits, drumming bands, food, cooking. It's all very much influenced by the slave culture of that part of the world. Then there's the interior, which is dark and mysterious and nobody lives there, but it's vast. So we'd try and do that as one, we thought. And it was a hard thing to do, but we covered quite a bit of ground. Then Rio had to be done, and I thought Rio needs really its own programme. But we also dealt with the mining area to the north of Rio, which is very, very important, because that's where the wealth of Brazil was really created several hundred years ago, and now is still producing an enormous amount of iron ore, gold, bauxite, all the stuff they need, and that's what's helped keep Rio rich. The last programme just fell into place. It was Sao Paulo, biggest city in the southern hemisphere, and southern Brazil, which is again completely different from all the other areas. It's very European influence, Italians, or actually Japanese there as well, but very, very different from the African Brazil.
And are Brazilians generally aware of how the country is changing? Are they coming to terms with its status as a new kind of economic powerhouse, albeit a slightly emerging one? Are they excited about the Olympics and the World Cup coming up?
I think it's the odd thing about the Brazilians is they're very, in a way, very kind of content with their life as it is, and they live very much for the day. You can't talk to them much about, the years ahead or even the past. They live very much for now. Interestingly enough, I talked to a family. It's in the books, not on the screen. In Rio, a young sort of mid-30s graphic designer, that sort of world. And they're quite worried about the economic boom. They said what's happened is that the property in Rio has become very, very expensive. A lot of foreigners are buying up houses in Rio, which they were going to rent out from the time of the Olympics for the World Cup, and it's making it very, very expensive, prohibitively expensive for young couples. And there are other things that came up, like education in Brazil is still pretty poor, state education. So they have to send their children to a private school. That's costing a lot of money. So they seem, this boom economy, people seem just as strapped for cash as we are in this completely flatlining economy. I thought that was interesting. So they're all jumping up and down saying, oh, the country's safe. But I know when when the Olympics and the World Cup happen, there'll be great parties, great entertainment. They do know how to enjoy themselves.
I know. I quite fancy going out there myself. And your most memorable moment, do you think, was that on was it the Gay Pride? Being on the float in the in the
being
carnival?
on the transvestites and transsexuals bus. That was quite a weird one. That was a very, very weird one indeed. I was slightly jet lagged, so I thought, I'm dreaming. This is not really happening. No, that was unforgettable. I think really the moment when we went into the rainforest for the first time with the Yanomami in the north, and landed in this little airstrip and then walked through the forest for an hour to get to where they lived. And that walk through the forest is just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's what travelling is all about.
Yeah.
You go from one comfort zone, from your own comfort zone to something quite different.
Yeah.
You're not sure what you're going to find at the end of the trail, and yet it's beautiful. And the sun shining through the trees, and you think, God, you know, we've got to preserve this.
Yeah.
This is a good place to live.
That's time up. Any future trips planned? Any more?
No, I've no plans at the moment. I tend to... ideas come up out of the blue. I mean,
Yeah.
Brazil was not meant to happen.
Yeah.
But as I say, just suddenly, wow, it's
Yeah.
all happening in Brazil. Everyone's going to be talking about it. I've got to go there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to go to the Middle East and travel there, because I think there's a lot of history and fascinating
Yeah, I'm
ways
reading
of life.
the Robert Fisk book at the moment, The
Are
Man
you?
with Great Walk of
Oh, right.
Civilization. Just started
yeah.
it, but it's so interesting, and he
Yeah.
writes beautifully as
Yeah,
well.
I know. It'd be very, very difficult. It's a difficult area to visit,
Yeah.
because you have to get so many permissions
Yeah.
and there's wars on. But I think all the more reason to go.
Yeah.
Just because it's a state of crisis doesn't
Yeah.
mean that there aren't people there
That's it.
who want to be talked to, want to make contact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael.
All right.